Yeah, here, Remzo. Hi,
I tried to
Remzo.
put I tried to put a coffee table together, and long story short, it got made, but it's also damaged now. So it's been a
Uh,
pretty productive day.
Thank you. You're not the carpenter in this lot. And on that
No.
note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to That Man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. Hello, all in our
Hello,
YouTube
all.
chat.
Hello,
And
all. Hello,
thank you.
hello, all.
Thank Ben always makes it easy for me to intro the show. And I thank
Hello,
you all
all.
for the downloads. It's been amazing. We're humbled by it. As Remzo always says, don't forget to give the 5-star review. And even if you listen here, it's imperative that you download our show. You download Gary Collins' the SimpleLifeNow.com show. You download On the Run with Remzo Martinez.
Sometimes I'm on the runs.
And I want to welcome everybody to the Saturday Night Special of The World According to That Man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We're welcome from Milwaukee, Remzo W. Martinez. Remzo, what does the W stand for? And all this time, I've never asked you.
Some secrets I keep to myself.
Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
guess. I'm gonna guess Wilson.
Okay.
But of course, from the SimpleLifeNow.com podcast website cohort, man that served this country for over 20 years, Gary Collins. Nice hat. Have the same one Gary rocking, different color, nice hat. Mine just has a little fish. But of course, this show would be complete without America's humble servant, actor, writer, provocateur, saint, sinner, lover, father,
Economist,
grandfather.
lawyer, doctor,
But do you take
expert,
Medicaid?
teacher.
You didn't answer Remzo's question. Do you take
I'm sorry,
Medicaid?
but messenger.
Do you take Medicaid?
No.
And
I
on
don't
that note,
I don't take any insurance, and I don't have any patients. That makes it really simple.
that's actually quite funny. And on that note, let's start the show, guys. Ben wanted to get into something that I think is very important to talk about very quickly. Not very quickly, but it's
It would
extremely.
bear a lifetime's worth of talking.
Yes, but Ben, please don't put the air conditioner on. It muffles your sound.
All right, Jeff, will you open the windows? It's too damn hot in here.
What
Okay.
what a professional show we are, and that's why people love us. But it really needs to be said today, Ben, because nowhere in the news do you see what Hamas's leader said, that he wants to strike a missile into the heart of Tel Aviv, essentially annihilating however many hundreds of thousands of people live in Tel Aviv. But that doesn't get any press coverage. Anti-Semitism doesn't get press coverage. It was up over 500% during the past month in the UK. There are synagogues being burnt across the world, but nobody seems to care. Jewish lives do not matter. I would say the same thing about Christian lives across the world tend to not matter. And I would say Latino lives across the world tend to not matter. But we're talking about Jews, Ben Stein, so go for it.
Well, I was stunned when I got an email from a very close friend of mine. Really, we've been friends since 1956, a very, very smart expert in immigration law, among many other subjects, named Nolan Rappaport. And Nolan sent me a video of a conference that was being held at the University of North Carolina, jointly with Duke, on Gaza. And it was just a big anti-Semitic, Jew-hating scream session held on the campus of the University of North Carolina, a publicly funded school, prestigious school. I've spoken there. It's a fine school. And the master of ceremonies, at least the part of the parts that I saw, was just screaming anti-Semitic mockery, screaming horrible, not funny at all jokes about Jews and killing Jews. And I thought to myself, why am I seeing this on the internet, sent to me by a friend from Montgomery Hills Junior High School, a real hellhole of anti-Semitism, when it should be gigantic front page news everywhere. But of course it isn't, because Jewish lives don't matter. And now we had thousands of years of raw anti-Semitism, culminating in the boiling cauldron of the Holocaust. And for a while then, after that, it died out, not entirely, not at all entirely, but now it's coming back with a vengeance. Only the new anti-Semitism is called anti-Zionism, but it is still anti-Semitism. And the question I endlessly ask is, why do people hate Jews so much? my wife, who is a Gentile, who is a Presbyterian, his family has been Presbyterians since Presbyterianism was founded, says it's genetic. It's so deep, it's genetic. I don't know what it is. Envy, jealousy, resentment of the other. I don't know what it is, but something is going on which is thoroughly evil. And now it's now respectable to be an anti-Semite again. Only you call yourself an anti-Zionist, but it is the same old anti-Semitism, the same old Jew hating, the same old Jew baiting. It's back in fashion. It's totally acceptable now. It's totally acceptable, even in the entities in the media world that are Jewish owned and controlled. And it's very upsetting. The thought, guns are a wonderful thing, comes to my mind night and day.
Brilliantly said. Couldn't have been said better. Gary Collins, I saw you shaking your head up and down, so I will let you go first.
Well, I was just listening to the master, the teacher, about this, because with the last name of Collins, as you can imagine, this is not my specialty. And plus, I get all of my international information and news from AOC, because we have the same doctor for PTSD. So we have that in common. It's weird, though, that at the same time, there's becoming an anti-Asian Chinese problem as well. That's on the rise. I don't know. And I've always been puzzled why so many Jews are on the left, and yet the left always proves to not like the Jews. It's bizarre.
And the left, Barry, my dear friend, in your houseboat with your famous trademark face and hat. A Jew founded the left. Marx was a Jew. Marx was a Jew who hated Jews because he had Jewish relatives who were rich and successful, and he hated them. And he created the whole Capitalist Manifesto and Das Kapital to demystify and make it sound scientific, and the hatred of Jews. And
Gary brings up a very good point, though, Ben, about with the Asians and the Jews right now. And if you notice, many of the attacks are happening by one group of people.
Of course, they're happening by the blacks, but why? Why? The Jews have never disliked the blacks. The Jews have always been friends with the blacks. I don't understand it. When I was demonstrating as a young man, which was a long time ago, for the rights of blacks, most of the people with me at Yale, at Columbia, at Montgomery Blair High School were Jews. If you look at the front ranks of the marchers marching from Selma to Montgomery, they're mostly, not all, but mostly Jews among the white ones. Where's this hatred of Jews coming from among the blacks? It's being stirred up by the leftists among the blacks.
And versus the Asians, and let's not forget Asians. I mean, Asian crime,
Asians are so powerful. The Asians are so incredibly powerful. It's a terrible thing that people are harming the Asians. The Asians are the best thing that's ever happened to America in the post-war period. But there's the danger to the Asian race is trivial from black people in America. And the danger to the Jews is very real.
No, very well said, Remzo. You brought up that people only bring you on to speak about Latin affairs, and now we're asking you, Remzo Martinez, your thoughts on this. And I know you do have thoughts on it.
Martinez.
You went to a very Christian school. You went to a school that is, thank God, a big advocate for Israel and the Jews. What are your thoughts on this, Remzo?
I want to say the last 6 months of my life have been extremely better ever since I cut out Fox, CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC. I get a lot of my news from just a handful of outlets on the left, right, and middle when you can find the one golden goose out there. But primarily, I mean, when I hear instances like this, I thought it was so funny because the whole Asian Lives Matter moment only lasted for 2 seconds, and then everyone quickly shifted directions. Around this time of year, I remember 3 years ago when I was still living in DC, I went to a memorial for the Rwandan massacre. It was put on by the Rwandan embassy amongst its Western partners. And I went ahead and met with one of the speakers, actually wrote an article on this for the Advocates for Self-Government. And what happened to her was she was about 6 or 7 at the time. And as her family were being massacred, she played dead for a little bit, and she was thrown into a pile of bodies, and they kept continuing to throw bodies onto this pile as they were just completely crushing this young girl for hours and hours. And then she said that she stayed there for another 2 days, starving and soiling herself until the soldiers went away. And years later, she eventually wrote a book, which for the life of me, I can't remember off the top of my head, but she noted something very specific in her speech. It was, some people are just evil, and we like to go ahead and blame one reason or another. We like to go ahead and make an excuse for this thing. But the thing is, I recognize the people that were throwing bodies onto the pile. I recognize the people that were hacking off limbs and shooting women and children. They never needed an excuse. They just did it because they could, and it was a good opportunity for them. Sometimes evil is just evil. And, right now we're just in another phase of that. I don't think it's necessarily that, anti-Semitism is, something genetic. I think that some people are just hateful, and they're always looking for an outlet, whether they're attacking blacks or whites or Asians or whoever. I think right now what we have is this giant screen going ahead and focusing on all the evils of the world. And what they're basically doing is they're basically saying, hey, you can go ahead and get your 5 minutes by pulling out all these atrocities that you can. So I don't think this is the end. It's not the end. The good book says it's not the end. And sadly, I think we're just going to keep seeing it. But, we could ask ourselves, why is this happening all the time? But the reason why is that if there's one thing's genetic, it's sin. It's the flaw that we have evil within us. And some people are just going to be evil just because they want to.
And envy, the root of everything, according to a good book, which you're so kind as to quote, and we certainly appreciate it, is envy. Envy is what eats up everything good in this world. And envy is what's going on now in the Middle East. It's going on in America. It's going on in China. It's going on all over. And it's an evil, horrible thing. And as you say, Remzo, it is basic. I don't think it's going to be eradicated. The Lord Jesus Christ tried very hard to eradicate it. His was the best solution there ever was. Love thy neighbor as thyself. He tried it and saw what happened to him. And it didn't now. So I think at this point, those who can, make sure you're armed. Make sure you're armed.
And I think you're completely right. And as I brought up the other day, for the Jews, the NRA is much more important than the JDL, which is the Jewish Defense. I mean, not the ADL, the Anti-Defamation. All right, we need the JDL. But Ben, I know you disagree with me on this a little bit, but I do think it comes from the top down. And I think this administration's coming, lack of obviously they have the Hamas squad, as they're now being called, in the House. You have the lack of shaming, and I mean, we have one. Remember, there was that congressman from somewhere who's extremely I don't even want to say to the right, but he was pretty. They took away all his seats. They've taken Marjorie Greene's seats. But Ilhan Omar and all these people are still allowed to scream out there whatever they want, and it comes from the top down, and nothing is being done. And that includes from the Jews like Schumer, because they're scared to death.
Schumer is, there's a Yiddish word, I don't know if it's Yiddish or Hebrew, shanda, shame. Schumer is a shanda for the Jews. He is a shame and a disgrace for all of us Jews. He's just a disgrace to America, period.
But Gary Collins, there is a lack of messaging in any, every time Trump was associated with something, he had to denounce every single thing that he never announced in the first place. And this lack of there is no
accountability.
There's no accountability on the left. There's no accountability in this White House for what's going on around the world and in America.
Because the media are the ones who, I think my friends, Mr. Martinez and Mr. Collins, would, and of course Judah, would agree, The media are the ones who would usually be holding people to account, but they don't hold. Democrats, leftists are not held to account.
No,
Yeah. Well, I had a saying
Horrible,
this
but
week,
it's true.
and I just said we have too many people who love to hate and hate to love
Yes,
today.
yes, yes,
It's a
yes.
huge problem, and also ignoring. And I like that analogy of from the top down. It's funny. Instead of calling them the squad, I've always called them the mob, and I don't know why. I didn't do it on purpose. I would always call them the mob. It just kind of came to me.
the
I think-
mob squad.
also-
the mob
I think they're
squad.
called the
No,
Jihad.
I'd call them the mob.
I think they're
And
called
you-
Jihad.
But how quickly we forget that, our president has had a lifelong relationship with this guy called Robert Byrd.
Yeah.
Well, how quickly Mr. Biden forgets that for most of his career, he was a great friend of the Jews. When he needed the help of the Jews, they were there to help him. Now
When he
that
needs
he's
donations,
boss,
get elected.
get fucked, Jews. That's his new.
And on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to Ben Stein Unleashed. Remzo, you can give me a break and tell people where they can find us.
That should be the cold opening if we were to introduce to something get fucked. That was so funny. Please go ahead and subscribe to the show. Oh, absolutely. Go ahead and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, wherever you can find us across Al Gore's amazing internet. And please hit the subscribe bell so you always get a notification when we go live here on YouTube. If you're not watching this on YouTube, go ahead and do the same on Rumble, because why not do one or the other? Why not do both? Why not be extra awesome that way? And if you need more Ben Stein in your life, please subscribe to Ben's newsletter, benstein.substack.com. That's benstein.substack.com.
And of course, well, thank you, Remzo. And I miss you doing that. And welcome back, everybody, to the world according to Ben Stein. And somebody said the squad, but that just doesn't sum it up. They're
The
period.
Jihad Squad.
I like that. Jihad Squad. That's Ben. We got to tag that
Sure,
line.
sure,
That's what we're
sure.
naming the show tonight.
Sure, that's what they're being called.
You know what? I'm crediting it. I'm crediting to Ben Stein. But I want to bring something up else. I want to bring up, I had written a piece about this a while back, but pre-Trump, as the world was falling apart, you could say, as the Middle East was on fire, you had ISIS growing, America wasn't looking great. You didn't see any of this, obviously, on the news. You saw GMOs, you saw Scientology, it was the Kardashians. Nothing about North Korea was really mentioned. Maybe a few pieces in the Wall Street Journal, Ben, I'll give them credit. But none of this was mentioned. All of a sudden, Trump comes in, puts the fires out that are going across the world, builds this mammoth juggernaut economy, an economy so great that it's been able to stand COVID. But obviously, only Trump's fire gets. And now we get Biden in, and nothing of the world. Nobody's talking about the Middle East is on fire. Nobody's talking about the civil war that might be brewing in France, where soldiers are supposedly, there was an anonymous letter from soldiers saying they were going to attempt a coup in France.
In France?
In France.
Yeah, they're not known for doing much.
Yeah.
Again, if you could Google this so you don't think I'm crazy, but Google Civil War France, and you have to actually Google it for it to come up. And Ben, what do you say about that? I mean, it's amazing that I understand that the media there's never going to be that thing, but at a certain point, we could see.
Well, we can see, but the media is the ones who do the media are the glasses. I mean, if the media devoted 1/100th of the energy to examining, scrutinizing, criticizing, mocking, belittling Biden, Harris, and Schumer, the worst dirt on the earth, and Mrs. Pelosi, a charmer herself, that they did it to Trump, those people would be wiped off the face of the earth, but they don't. The media are I've said this before, I'll say it again. The media are the iron guard for the Democrats and for the left. And by the way, let's back up a couple of things. First of all, my dear friend Remzo, whose face is a very, very welcome sight, I will say endlessly every time I see him. The French actually were very badly led in World War II. They fought unbelievably bravely in World War One. They fought unbelievably bravely to cover the English withdrawal and departure from Dunkirk. The French are an incredibly capable, brave people. But the fact is, this country, our country that we're all sitting in right now, is the best thing that's ever happened to mankind, ever. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. What's really happened in the last few months since Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris have taken over is that we have converted America from a nation of America lovers to America haters. And I think Judith said this either on the last show or the show before, and it was a brilliant point. America now has more enemies at home than overseas. But this is the greatest country in the world. It is an unbelievably great country. The people in this country are the best people there ever were on this earth. Somehow, the media is trying to brainwash us all into thinking that we're a racist, horrible Ku Klux Klan dictatorship. That is such a lie. We have somehow got to get back to appreciating the greatness of this country. This country is just unimaginably great. We've got to get to understand that.
You know, Gary, you having served this country for 20 years, and somebody brought this up and I was going to bring it up. They are scrubbing. Listen, and I brought this up before. I understand you want to get back into the Paris Peace Accords. God bless you, you crazy sons of bitches. But they are literally scrubbing the Abraham Accords from all the State Department. So Trump's Middle East peace is being scrubbed. And Gary, you as being somebody that it's almost like Iran can't vote today in the UN, not because of their tyrannical stuff, because they couldn't pay the $16 million that it cost to be part of the UN, Gary.
Well, they must have spent all that money that Obama gave them on prostitutes and blow, because they got plenty of money from us to pay that tab. It's amazing.
To pay for all those missiles that they send to Hamas. I mean, they're sending hundreds of millions of dollars worth of rockets to Hamas. So somewhere they've got some money.
But Gary, you as on foreign policy, it's like you hate a person so much that you're willing to put a region on fire again and let the state sponsor of terrorism, who is so close to nuclear capabilities, just why not?
Well, and that's the part. It's the evil in the world. It's hard for a rational human being to kind of put together in their head. When we were over in Yemen, we would do our motorcades through the streets, and the small kids would, we're talking 3-4-year-olds would stand out in their trash that's in their front yard. Literally, they would throw their trash out their window in the morning. There was a time when you would drive by and literally it would look like it was raining trash out of houses, and they just throw it out their front window. And we'd go by and the kids would be holding sticks pretending to shoot our motorcade. And these are tiny kids. And it's bred in from the word go that hate. You must hate this other group. And until we can get out of that and figure it out, it's like white supremacists, right? The white supremacist army is rallying around and getting ready to take over the U.S. according to full diaper Biden. I don't know what he's even talking about. I don't even know where he's going.
Full diaper Biden. Where'd you get that? That's wonderful.
I'm naming the show.
I made it up on the spot.
Full diaper Biden. I am writing that down. It beats the Jihad Squad. Full diaper Biden.
Biden's raging jihad in his diaper. That's what's going on.
But Remzo, have you ever? You're also a wonk, and I know you read, and I know you. The lack of coverage of foreign politics in any of the mainstream outlets is sort of horrifying. And I brought this up with Ben before the show. I think a big reason they're not covering what's going, because Macron was always being covered during Trump. So was Trudeau. The world was being covered. Now all of a sudden the world's not. And I really believe, I'm not asking for this at all, or YouTube, I'm not encouraging this at all, but I think they're scared to show what's going on in France because
I didn't know about it.
That's exactly right, Gary. And the thought of a civil.
What did Gary say? I didn't catch up.
He didn't hear about it either. And Remzo, the thought of carrying the Civil War would make January 6th look like nothing, like a party, and that it might carry over here.
So one of the most evil men in the Obama administration is often someone who most even very stalwart Democrats don't even know, and it's Ben Rhodes. Ben Rhodes basically wrote the Iran policy, and what Ben Rhodes went on CNN and did was he basically took credit for destroying the foreign office of every major American outlet. And what he basically did was he said, if you want to go ahead and know what's going on overseas, go ahead and pull your reporters back and everything, and just get everything from me in the State Department. So the National Security Office and the State Department will be your foreign office. And he went ahead and joked about it because what he basically said, and this is online, he created a giant echo chamber to spin the narrative that the Iran deal was all these things that it turned out not to be. And he knew it was a lie. He said it was a lie, and he laughed. And no one has ever held him to account for that. And what people tend to forget is that in 2014, when Barack Obama, right around the height of the Arab Spring, he was about to actually put forces on the ground in a very concentrated effort in Syria to go ahead and fight ISIL, ISIS, whatever we were calling them, Cobra at the time. And Americans, and Americans were basically like, no, we don't want to go ahead and get involved in this. And then Obama was like, well, if my foreign partners want us to, maybe we should. And as we saw, especially in England, the British were like, no, we're not getting involved in this, and we don't want Obama to get involved in this. So when the world was focused on this, that was one of Obama's biggest losses. It was not getting us involved in World War III immediately. And the Democrats don't see that as a loss, but policy-wise, that went ahead and brought them back several years in terms of concentrated effort, in terms of foreign policy development over the Middle East. Because, you know, you want to look at a big victory, it was basically destroying almost all the secular governments in North Africa and the Middle East. So good job, Obama, with that. And I think Biden, people tend to think that he's stupid, but he's not. And he surrounded himself with very ideological people who are smart, and they're calculating, and they're cunning, and they're not the type of people you want to deal with. So I think in a way they're doing this intentionally. And this will, and I mean, this will probably get us taken off YouTube for this one, but I mean, it's worth covering. And I mean, there are three great presidents who all basically got shunted aside because they dared spoke about it. It was Eisenhower, who we basically never heard from after he left from office. There was JFK, who was assassinated. Then there was Trump, who had everyone going up against him. It's because they uttered several words: the military industrial complex. You know who loves forever war in the Middle East? Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, Halliburton, all these other companies. The stock goes up as soon as this happens. The lobbying hits all new highs, and it's bipartisan. The Republicans and Democrats love nothing more than Middle East conflict, and they don't care how much of your money, they don't care how many American soldiers, they don't care how many innocent civilians overseas have to die because it's not in their front or backyard. They don't care.
Ben, what say you?
I love all those companies. I think they make incredibly great weapons, and I want to see our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines equipped with the very best weapons there could possibly be. And I will tell you, as a person who has worked in the State Department and in the White House, I, with the greatest possible respect to you, Remso, whom I love like a brother, well, like a much younger child, I don't think these companies have anywhere near the influence that you think they do. And but your views are always well expressed, and I will certainly take them to heart.
Ben, it is curious though. It's a common. You have to ask questions that we as conservatives never dared to ask. And what Remso's bringing up is, it sure looks like this administration and the world is okay with war again.
But I think I don't know what you mean by that. I mean, what wars has Mr. Biden gotten us into? Don't get me wrong. I think I can put my record as a person who criticizes Mr. Biden up against anyone's, but I don't see him starting any wars. Obama, yes, for sure, but Obama was a stone fool. I mean, that was well known. I don't think he started any wars. Trump was great about kicking us out of wars. Absolutely great. I don't see Biden getting us into wars, but I hope that I continue to be right about that. But
Ben, lack of action causes other countries to be in chaos and war, though. If you look at what's going on in Israel, I know you might disagree with me. This is a direct result of the Biden administration. If you look at what they're trying to get back with Iran into the Iran nuclear deal, that could lead.
That's hard. I agree. It's hard, but I'm afraid. I'm very much afraid that when Iran gets, God forbid, gets the nuclear bomb, it's going to be way beyond war. It's going to be nuclear war.
So that's the point I think Remzo's trying to make, is that these decisions across the world are leading us down that path and that rabbit hole again, with all of them siding with Iran right now.
Well, with all due respect to Remzo, whom I really do respect and enjoy and learn a lot from, if Iran gets the nuclear bomb, the next thing you're going to see is a gigantic series of flashes of nuclear bombs from Israel going off all over Iran. And what comes after that, I'm not sure, but it's not going to be any kind of war like any war we've seen before.
And the problem is nobody's stopping them because we have no foreign.
Well, because we have an administration that has no foreign policy, and the people who are running the White House have no testicles.
Okay, so I want to get to this after the break. You brilliantly said, and so I want to get to Gary. Remzo, tell people where they can find this.
If you have testicles, you should definitely subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, or wherever you can find podcasts across the amazing internet. And while you're at it, share the show with a friend, an enemy. Who knows? If they speak and breathe, you should share the show with them. The World According to Ben Stein, YouTube, Rumble, you can find it anywhere. Just go ahead and do it. And if you don't,
do I have to both speak and breathe?
Speak and breathe at the same time.
Okay.
You see, now I'm questioning, can I do it? Yeah, I can. Oh, wait, no, I didn't breathe that time. Okay, yeah, it works. Okay.
Okay, all right, then we'll do it.
So maybe that's what I'll call the show tonight. You don't listen, you have no testicles. On that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to, the future banned episode of The World According to Ben Stein. And I want to get to that point, though. We are 9 months into whatever you want to call this regime, Ben
Are
Stein.
we really in this one that far?
Well, from November, I mean, to January, February, March,
No,
April,
it
May,
wasn't.
June. We're 6 months in. We're 6 months in. But we're 6 months into there. Have one foreign? Forget about Kamala Harris not going to the border. Have we spoken to people from other borders? I mean, it almost it.
No, well, Mr. Biden cannot. That's an awful lot of exercise for me. To say. I think we're expecting too much from him. You're certainly not. What do you want? Have him to do a decathlon next? I mean, what do you expect?
Gary, have you ever seen it this far into an administration? It seems like there's absolutely no cohesion. We don't know what's going on with the rest of the world. I mean, whatever you want to say about the Trump administration, at least we knew he was meeting with world leaders. He was trying to get deals done. Things were actually getting done. We didn't re-engage in any wars. And there was a certain calm, as much as they like to say that there was a storm, Gary.
I'm a simpleton. I always judge our international policy by the actions of Putin. Putin is a stone cold killer. I watch his moves. When I know our policy's off the rails is when Putin starts ramping it up. I know right away. He smells weakness a mile away. And he is ready. I mean, did you hear about now he's getting ready to, with the pipeline, he's talking about 400,000 new jobs for Russians, and 15 new towns are going to be built. Right after we get rid of our pipeline, Russia all of a sudden goes off the rails, and now he just wait. I think we're going to see Putin really start doing some damage down the road.
Russia
ready.
Yeah, Russia the other day also went ahead and divested from all US dollar assets from the federal government. So everything that the Russian government was holding that was tied to the dollar, they just went, nah, we're going to put this away now.
So what do they buy instead?
I don't know.
Bitcoin. I'm Dogecoin. I'm kidding. But Ben, this is sort of a frightening thing that we're living through right now, and nobody wants to. I mean, we're talking about the most trivial things in the world. In America, we're talking about with social media. Trump got banned from Facebook for 2 years. They said we might extend it further. I mean, that is an abs, and I think he more than hinted that he is running again, because his comment back was, Mark Zuckerberg will not be invited back to the White House. And I really think they're poking the wrong bear here, Ben.
Well, I'd like to now go down my screen to my friend Remzo and point out that some time ago, I believe it was you, Remzo, pointed out a case, a Supreme Court case, which said that a private company could be held to account under the First Amendment for refusing to allow free speech. Wheeling Steel, was that not you who talked about that? I believe it was. If it wasn't, then I'm some very smart person did.
I know what you're talking about. But I do remember talking about that. Yeah.
I think what we've really seen here is working with Mr. Biden and Ms. Harris is the media conglomerate power structure that is going to keep America from having free speech for the foreseeable future. And that to me is a very, very frightening situation. And although I would love to see Mr. Trump run again, and I would love to see any Republican become president, I happen to love Mr. Cotton a lot. I don't see how anybody can make any meaningful progress against this stone wall of the media, government, intelligentsia coalition that just will not allow free speech.
Ben, I will go to Gary, but Gary, to his point, which you raise is a good one, but Ben, I'll go to you back to something you brought up, but I'll let Gary go on it. We have won presidencies with as bad of coverage as humanly possible. The media has never been our friend, and we've won. So Gary, their worst fear is the lockdowns ending, is the masks ending, is these voter rights laws, these voter ID. I hate even calling them the voter normal. To get anywhere, you need an ID. To go into a pharmacy, Gary, and buy, what is that drug? Sudafed, a certain type of Sudafed. You need to show your driver's license so they don't think you're like building a.
I didn't even know you could make meth with Sudafed until the clerk told me.
I didn't know that either, by the way, and I didn't know you. And there was a while where Target was carding you when you brought like the spray cans to clean your computer. Thank you, Target, for telling me you could get high on the Target cans or the Whippets. But Gary, so I go to you on that one. There is a chance, and I do believe there's a chance, and we'll see the midterms coming up. But once people are able to go out and vote, states have laws. Yeah, I think this is their biggest fear.
Well, their biggest fear is us realizing freedom again, right? There's still, it was pretty interesting for me to see in a city of like Spokane. You know, I'm in Washington, but I'm in Northeast Washington, right on the Idaho border. So things are
I know that
different.
so well. Oh,
I know. Things are very different here compared to the rest of Washington.
Very different.
Very different. But in Spokane, in 2 weeks, literally it went from people driving around with their mask on to no one wearing a mask almost. And it was very quick. And I was shocked to see it happen that quickly. And they still had the mask signs up in the stores. I went into every store last week without a mask and no one said a word. Most of the people were not wearing masks in the store. The clerks still were. But it's interesting to see the taste of freedom. And I think as people regain their freedom again, that's their problem. Because now they're like, oh, shit. You know, people are thinking for themselves again. We're in trouble. I think we've always heard, you know, the last couple elections, these are the most important elections in our history. I think the next one is the most important because I think that's going to tell which direction this country is going to go.
I think that's a brilliant point because you had both. Ben, I know you wanted to jump in, but I'll let you jump in with this too. He's basically saying, and Rems, I'll let you answer this one too, is Gary's basically saying we had this greatness with Trump. We have cancel culture. We have cancel killing on the left. People will have both in their mind. Do you feel safe or don't you feel safe? Right in front of them, Ben. And people will decide in person.
Well, I hope they will. I hope they will not be being told night and day that things are the best they could possibly be, considering the incredible danger of white supremacist, Ku Klux Klan, night riding, maniac, fascist killers. I hope that people will not buy that nonsense. I was on a plane yesterday with Big Wifey, flying back from Washington, D.C. to glorious LAX center, the universe. And the captain came on at the beginning of the flight and said, now, you know, you all have to wear your masks even during a flight. However, and you may take them off for a few seconds to sip on a drink. That's it. Then they have to go right back on. You can take it off for a few seconds. Don't make it more than a few seconds. And I said to wifey, big wifey, this is right out of 1984. It's even worse than 1984. A few seconds, that's the most freedom they're allowing us. And if we don't understand that we have a state now where some jackass in the forward cabin can tell us that we can only take our masks off for a few seconds, we are, and if we don't vote to change that in a big way, we are in really trouble, big trouble. We have asked for the end of our freedom.
So Remzo, I know the brilliantly said has always been Stein. It's funny. The other night I called him after the show and I said, "My God, your mind is like whatever I said, Remzo." And he's like, "I know." And I was saying how beautiful a mind he had, and he was agreeing with me. But Remzo, I know you don't believe in government.
That actually is not true. I said I'm a complete failure in almost every respect, but if that's what you choose to remember.
No, you said your mind was like a treasure trove, and it was. Okay. That's what I heard, Ben. Okay. But that's because that's the way I want to see you. But Remzo, and we've lost Gary for a second, but Remzo, I know you.
That is Gary, is it not?
Sorry?
That is not Gary.
No, Gary's back. And Remzo, but
I had to yell at my dog real quick. So
that's okay. And Remzo, I know you're not the biggest proponent of what Gary's saying because you don't necessarily believe in our system of government sometimes. But I do tend to believe Gary is correct that the next elections are the most important elections because right in front of us, you have good versus evil or freedom versus not being free, Remzo.
I don't think the question is really whether or not I agree with Gary on that specifically. I think what we're trying to remember is why things go good when they do. And that's why I try and, I think there's a lot of authority worship with the right. And I'm not pointing out your thin blue line flag, Judah. I love it. But at the same time, it's like there seems to be a big appeal to authority for things. The last 4 years under Trump weren't great because of Trump. It was great because of the thousands of inventors that went ahead and put a historic number of patents in to create new technologies and devices to help, grow our economy. It went for all the workers that were picking up second, third jobs. It went for the people starting businesses. It went for the people taking chances. It went for the people that actually created the economy that, thanks to Trump, they were able to do these things. And I think oftentimes we go ahead and, I think to be a conservative in America right now is to put your kid through 12 years of public school and then wonder why they end up being a communist. It's why when I was at the Washington Times, somebody told me they weren't willing to pay $1 a month for real news because they could get it elsewhere for free. It was Yahoo Finance, ironically, which is owned by the same people that own all the other places. Conservatives often go ahead and just shift things one way or another. And, we attack the left for being stupid, for being all these things, but they're organized, they're committed. They actually go out and create the world they want to see.
And they're energetic, hardworking. It's amazing. It's astonishing. I endlessly marvel at how energetic and hardworking the left.
It's the hive mind. They're like ants. But with that said, I think we need to remember that for all this change to occur, it's never just going to be one person. America's not going to be great because of Trump, and America's going to be great with or without Trump. I think we need to remember that, and that often gets lost in the sauce.
No, we're constantly talking about the midterms coming up and finding good and viable candidates that could lead the future of the country. We've brought up certain names like people like Josh Hawley. We've brought up Tom Cottons. We've brought up that there is a really good young base in the conservative movement. In the whatever movement.
I'm gonna go ahead and propose this to you, though. I think focusing on the midterms is just giving a lot of money to a lot of to a lot of consultants. It's going to a lot of PACs.
I said that I brought up in the past.
But let me just get this out there. And I don't think anyone ever thinks about this. What if we had a state that was overwhelmingly Republican, And I'm going to throw this out to my libertarian friends out there because everyone thinks, it's Rand Paul versus the NSA or something. What if Republicans had a super majority in Utah? We got a bunch of America firsters, a bunch of libertarians there, and then we cut off water to the NSA. That's a stupid thing when you really think about it. But at the same time, it's like we could do that. What if when Biden, if he wants to go out and confiscate weapons, we actually had a whole bunch of sheriffs arresting the feds. I think we tend to just focus on the same thing over and over again. As radical as these things are, it's more likely you're able to do things cheaper and more efficiently within the boundaries of the law and the Constitution statewide than if we keep focusing on this every 2-year bit cycle in the worst part of America.
You know, I agree with you, and I disagree with you at the same time.
And I'm not saying we cut off water to the NSA, but I'm saying if they really wanted to.
Ben, what he's bringing up is in a sense true, but in a sense, Ben, it's somewhat Pollyannish. We have to win seats in the House. Okay, I
want to know, first of all, what you mean, the National Security Agency?
Yeah,
aren't they outside Baltimore?
Yeah, but all their server facilities facilities that actually do everything are in Utah.
Okay.
Let's do it. Let's cut off the water in Utah. Let's cut off the water to Mitt Romney's to his dog castle. Remzo, please tell people where they can find this.
Just Google The World According to Ben Stein. You'll find it. You'll find the show here and on Rumble if you want to watch us live every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. And you can go ahead and catch the audio version wherever podcasts are available. And if you need more Ben Stein in your life, please find him at The Spectator, as well as his newsletter, benstein.substack.com. That's benstein.substack.com.
I want to welcome everybody back to The World According to that man, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. I was just thinking about it as Ben was bringing up masks, and we're all bringing up masks. I was thinking, you know what, the one thing that wasn't on the rise during COVID, everything was on the rise. Bullying, anti-Semitism, all these different things were on the rise. How come bank robberies weren't on the rise? You would think.
Well, the banks were closed.
No,
they weren't. They're not closed around here.
They're not closed around here, and I'm not suggesting anybody go into a bank job, Ben. But if any time in history you think bank jobs would be on the rise, it would be when everybody was wearing a mask.
That's a very good point. It's a very, very good point. I don't know what to say. Well, Peter, but I will give you a respectful answer, which is same reason. There's a labor shortage everywhere. Everyone's being paid by the federal government with our grandchildren and great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren's money, and with funny money, there's nothing behind it. Why bother robbing a bank? The government is robbing the bank for you and giving you the money.
Yeah. I want to go back a quick second. I'm sorry to hijack this, Judah, but I just want to make one more point. Ron DeSantis has done more for American freedom from the state we all make fun of, Florida, than anyone else in the United States.
We love Florida.
Dude, it's the internet. Everyone makes fun of Florida. Have you ever seen Florida Man? Have you,
other than it's
no, you've heard Florida jokes. You've heard Florida jokes.
I haven't heard Florida jokes.
I don't know how to explain that. But anyway, Ron DeSantis has done more for American freedom.
Cabal that they're making Florida jokes that aren't funny.
I have not heard a single Florida joke.
I'm going to go ahead and have to send you all the Florida jokes I can find. But really, here's what's going to happen right now.
What are you going to Google? Biden jokes?
Bro, I don't know how to fix you. I don't know how. I don't. But what I was saying, Biden's just going to run everything the way he's been running everything, whether the Republicans take the House or the Senate, one or the other, whatever combo they get, because he's running everything through executive fiat. You go ahead and you just have a whole bunch of states dissent like crazy, and you go ahead and make all of it irrelevant.
By the way, somebody brought up a great point. And other than yes, I know Florida is considered God's waiting room. Yes, it's a joke. It's a joke from Seinfeld and before. But Ben, somebody brought up a great point. Other than the federal stuff, they were looting stores all across America. They actually were, and it was okay because insurance companies.
It's okay because they were African Americans and the left defended them.
It was legalized bank robberies, Gary, that was going on.
Because you have one set of rules that apply if you're white and conservative, and apply if you're black and leftist, and that we all know that's true. And believe me, there's no greater fan of the hardworking, disciplined black man and family than I am. But we all know what happened last summer. We all know what's been happening in the urban centers during the riots.
And so do the polls, by the way.
Everyone knows it.
But Gary, I want to go to you on whatever, but I forgot what the question I was about to ask you was, Gary. So
let's ask something. Let's ask Gary.
With Remzo. I think a big point that Remzo was making is that as Americans, we seem to forget there are 50 United States. There are 50 independent states with their own constitutions that are basically autonomous in their own way. And I always tell people, I always hear people bitch about where they live, and I go, move, jackass. There's 50 other states for you to go. And they're all, I can't do that. I can't do that. I just like to bitch. And that's what I mean. I think you're seeing it now as some of the states are starting to draw their line in the sand. And I've always said this, the states need to stop taking federal money. When they disagree with something, tell them to go pound sand, take their money, shove it up their ass. We're not listening to you. And they won't do it because everyone is addicted to the corruption that makes all the millionaires and billionaires in this country through government.
But Ben, he brings up a great point where you see where we have the DeSantises, we have the Abbotts who are running their states as little countries. And they are doing, and it goes to what both of them are saying, which we have the outline, and I'm not saying secession right now, but we have the outline.
I should hope you're not saying secession.
But we have certain states.
I'm totally down for the Republic of Florida.
Okay, well, sir.
Somebody joked newlywed and nearly dead. Ben, they do raise good points. We have certain states that are really being responsible right now.
I know, sir, with the greatest possible respect, we tried secession a hell of a lot.
No.
Judah, your mic is muted.
Sorry, I wasn't saying secession, Ben, but to their
all we saw was.
I know, Ben, I wasn't saying secession, but what I was saying is they do raise good points where states can take control of their own states. And we've seen it during COVID. We've seen it, and we're seeing it now. We're seeing, I even bring up Atlanta with their voting stuff, where states are taking. Georgia, with this idiot governor, is against a critical race theory, and he's suing the schools not to have it in. So we're seeing states take accountability for themselves.
I completely love every bit of that. I think it's absolutely great, and I sincerely hope that every possible state that does it. There's a story in either yesterday's or today's Wall Street Journal about the unbelievable anti-constitutional mess that the state of Illinois has made, basically suppressing the Constitution in the state of Illinois. I would love to see more states rise up against that kind of thing and make sure it can never happen in their state. I'd like to suggest my part-time residence, Idaho, as one of the places to start that. I'm sorry to say the governor of Idaho, I'm sure is a fine human being, has endorsed critical race theory. That's unimaginable in the state of Idaho. The lieutenant governor, a very capable young woman, is fighting him tooth and nail. I think Idaho would be just as good a place as Florida to start a new American revolution without any violence, to stand up for the Constitution.
Can I be honest? That is a classroom I would pay to be in attendance at, is in Idaho, them teaching critical race theory in classes. Yeah. I would love to sit in, I would love to audit those classes. And if you just tuned in, you are listening to the World According to Stein. In the last 7 minutes of the show, I want to have a little bit of fun because life is meant to be enjoyable. Ben Stein, what is the oddest job? I know you've been a shoe salesman. What's the oddest
job? I like that job a lot.
But you did it for a week.
You didn't ask me what was the job I did the longest.
What was the oddest job you've ever had?
Well, I think it was being a speechwriter for a U.S. senator. It was a very handsome, good-looking, rich young guy from a mid-Atlantic state, and he was having a torrid affair with a college intern who was there for the summer, and I would hear all kinds of interesting noises coming from his office, and all of us had to pretend that none of it was happening, and it was all sort of like we were on the set of a porn movie, but we had to pretend we were on the set of Little House on the Prairie. That's one of the oddest jobs I've ever had. That was a fun job, by the way. I kind of liked that job.
But it wasn't really like you were on the set, because if you were on the set, then you'd actually be watching. That would have been
That's
a whole
why
other.
Passing by the door and hearing occasional noises. God bless
But
us.
I'm sure you will never reveal the name. Remzo, since the reason I even thought about this question is, Remzo, you've had many jobs. What is the oddest job you've had, Remzo?
I was door-to-door makeup salesman. And yeah, no, we sold the most like lead tainted products you can imagine. And one of the weirdest experiences I ever had was I was right outside of Baltimore. I think it was in an area called Glen Burnie, Maryland. And I was walking. Yeah, so I was walking through this parking lot, and I see these two old guys, like in their 70s, like arguing with each other.
Old.
Okay, I'm sorry. They were very respectable. Well, even
they were rode hard, Remzo, rode hard.
So they were about to like fight each other. Like one of them was holding a broken glass bottle, and I didn't make my sales quota for the day, so I couldn't get my minimum commission. So I went over to them and I said, "Hey guys, you want to get anything for your wives?" And they looked at me and they're like, "You think this face brings home a woman? You think this face keeps a woman?" And next thing you know, they go ahead and they grab my makeup and they're looking. They're like, "I can go ahead and get this at Walgreens and CVS. What are you trying to sell me?" And they looked at me again as they put my bags up against me, and they're like, "Man, you gotta go ahead and get some better advice. Here, I'll give it to you for free. Give up and sell drugs." And I quit that job a week later.
And you know what's hysterical?
What?
Did you start selling drugs?
Sorry, Ben?
Did you start selling drugs?
No, actually, I quit that job a week later. But a few days before that, I was selling business to business in Washington, D.C. And that's when I sold at my first strip club. And I met the stripper who Hunter Biden bit.
Who was that?
Ooh.
Who was that?
I think her name was like Candy or something.
Yes, that was.
You're kidding. You met a stripper.
What they're all called?
Candy?
I mean, there were like 3 candies in there. They're not giving me their real name. There are two strip clubs in DC. Archibald's. It was Archibald's Strip Club on K Street. And that's where all the politicians go. That's where Giuliani goes. That's where Hunter Biden goes. And, you know, Hunter was known for getting the VIP lounge on the 3rd floor. So when a stripper was bending over to go pick up something, he went and bit her in the butt.
I don't know what to say to that other than Gary Collins. What is your strangest job? And by the way, 1 second, Ben, I love how Remzo didn't say the nationality or the ethnicity of the race, I should say.
They were white.
Of the people that told.
They're all white.
No,
they were white.
Gary, would you have assumed the Acme people were white?
I would not have assumed they were white.
Yes, that's right outside Baltimore, man.
Yeah. Okay, Gary, what's the strangest job you've had?
Oh, international squirrel assassin. I was actually a bouncer for strippers. Ones that went house to house, bachelor parties. So in college, it was I'll tell you what, it was one of the best jobs I've ever had. So, I ain't gonna lie, it was good. They'd get you drunk because they wanted you loosey-goosey for free. All I did was change out ones and money and make sure no one got too handsy, and I got a free peep show. It was great. I couldn't do any better than that.
You know what's funny, Ben? As we're thinking about this and we're talking about this, college kids these days would be what's the word I'm looking for? Would never do these jobs. They'd be
not good enough. Not good enough.
Plus, they believe Gary should be canceled. Remzo, a woman should be, Remzo's doing a job that shouldn't be done that he doesn't belong. And you, Ben, you should have canceled that senator that you were speech writing for.
I liked him. He was my friend, and frankly, he was quite a good U.S. senator. Although his career ended very abruptly because he called for gun control, and in the state he was from, gun control was poison.
Well,
I just want to say for the record that strippers are some of the best negotiators.
You're not kidding. Oh, sorry.
Just ask Biden.
So my question also is, should I call the show tonight Full Diaper Biden or the Jihad Squad?
The Jihad Squad.
The Jihad Squad.
Oh,
You guys,
Jihad and Biden's diaper. Call it that. That should get us canceled off YouTube.
Jihad and Biden's diaper.
Jihad what?
The Jihad and Biden's diaper.
You guys, and on that note, I want to thank everybody for this fun and fruitful Saturday night. I've learned a lot about you. I like that I didn't have to share my strangest job.
What was
your strangest job?
What was your strangest job?
I'm embarrassed. I was in rehab in Israel, and this guy named Brad, and you never meet like normal Brads, but it's one of those names I've always noticed you're a little kooky if you have the name Brad. Sorry for Brads that are listening. But this guy said, "Do you want?" He was the janitor at a kindergarten for mentally challenged children. And I was drinking at this point. I wasn't and he said to me, "Do you want to work for me, do this job for a week and a half and clean up this facility at night?"
No.
And so I would go there at like 1 o'clock in the morning, or I went once or twice. And, it was a school for mentally challenged, preschoolers.
I'm afraid of where this is going.
And I just started mopping. Like I was like, "Oh, I can't." I told him I did it for a week, but I probably did it for 4 days. That was that and feeding a cat. It was my first job. And I just hated the smell of cat food. That was my first job. But it was being the custodian at a mentally challenged preschool in Israel.
Now you are going to get us canceled because there is nothing wrong with being mentally challenged.
There was absolutely nothing wrong. They were great. They produced stuff in amazing places. And on that note, you got to have some fun. You got to have some laughs. And on that note, I want to thank everybody that's been listening. Remzo, thank them and tell them where they can find us.
Folks, go ahead and just search The World According to Ben Stein on Al Gore's amazing internet, YouTube, Rumble, Apple Podcasts, wherever you can find the show in video or audio, it exists.
Gary, where can people find?
TheSimpleLifeNow.com.
That's simple. Remzo, you didn't tell people where they could find you in your amazing comic book series.
Go ahead, subscribe to Second Print Comics every Wednesday at secondprintcomics.com.
And of course, you can find Ben Stein, spectator.org, also Newsmax quite often. And we will be re-engaging with Parler. So Ben Stein at Parler, at Ben Stein on Parler. I want to thank everybody for joining us on this Saturday night. I want to thank everybody that's going to be listening to this podcast. We got to have a little fun with the seriousness because it's just, life's too short to not have fun. And Ben Stein, can you please take us out on this fine Saturday night? Ben? Did we lose Ben?
Oh, I thought he was just staring into the distance stoically.
Who wants to sing us out? We got to sing us out. Somebody sing us out.
No.
Okay, you know what? Someday on a Saturday night, I'll back on my feet. I'll be doing all right. It's Bon Jovi.
Stop.
Okay. Have a great night, everybody. Ben cut out. We will see you all on Tuesday night. Good night, everybody. Thank you.